Okay, so since the previous episode had this whole love and money thing and the theme seemed particularly good, I think this time I'll try and make it more about love and sex. Although then again, I didn't exactly plan all of these things, they just kind of fell onto my lap and, the theme just seemed to match for some reason. So, as far as the next couple of 20-something minutes goes, this episode is about love and sex. And fortunately, it's not one of the dirty episodes, so you don't need to cover anyone's ears for this. This one should be particularly chilled. And to kick things off, I am going to start from the more loving side of things. Now, India's first openly gay prince recently came out to reveal that his parents tried to make him have brain surgery to change his sexuality, which just sounds very, very odd. Like, you'd be thinking that they'd want to send him to a strip club or some shit. Because that's what some of us believe. But of all things, brain surgery? Like, couldn't they just have started him off by marrying him to some fine lady so that they can, get some kids and shit before they go to that? Because honestly, I can't understand why someone would want to go through such extreme measures just because another dude said that he liked dick. Okay, I get it. Our parents' generation, like Gen X and people who were born before Second World War, are pretty adamant about the whole being conservative and everything. But brain surgery though? I don't know. Anyways, let me just read the article real quick. So it says, and I quote, India's first openly gay prince, Manvendra Singh Gohil, revealed to Sky News that his parents attempted to make him undergo brain surgery to change his sexuality. He felt humiliated by their actions as they sought medical help to quote-unquote convert him after he came out as gay. Despite gay conversion therapy being discredited as medical misconduct in India, it is still offered by some doctors. Prince Gohil is now fighting a legal battle at the Indian Supreme Court to ban conversion therapy and legalize gay marriage in the country. He emphasized that no one should endure such harassment and suffering due to their sexual orientation and hopes for a more open-minded judicial system. End quote. Okay, now, I was against the whole brain surgery thing, and I think that sort of harassment should be gone, and I think also that form of medical misconduct, as they call it, which will involve conversion therapy, I think that was a little bit extreme. But now, the part where I start to side with the parents a little bit more, or at least against this prince, is the whole legalizing gay marriage. Banning conversion therapy is one thing, and I can get the sense in that. Legalizing gay marriage, though, I don't know. And I'm not saying this because I hate gay people or I have anything against the LGBT or anything of that sort. To be very honest, I think my biggest issue is the moment they start with that, it'll now start to snowball into a bunch of other demands. And some people can say, oh, maybe I'm jumping the gun. But the US of A and pretty much the West tried this shit and they started by legalizing it and they now started giving them more rights here and there. And they've just demanded more and more and more up until we're getting to a situation where you're having a transgender man having a child with a non-binary person and then claiming that the child should be considered non-binary. At the end of the day, it starts becoming very confusing and shit, and that kind of confusion is what a lot of conservative countries and places are trying to avoid. So I would go with banning the conversion therapy and that form of medical misconduct, but when it comes to gay marriage, oh no, it's not my cup of tea there. But what do I know about marriage or gay people? I'm just a guy that talks about straight people shit on this podcast, which I probably should have started in a little bit of a better way by saying, welcome to Breaktime on West Side, your number one Breaktime podcast, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. The man on the mic is a man who is homosexual, at least when the homies are babes. He's a man whose sickness for the thickness prevents him from skinny dipping. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. The show used to be called Tweet Street, the show where I usually dive into Twitter and pull up a couple of tweets and break them down a little bit. But ever since Elon Musk changed the name to X, I honestly don't know what the fuck I'm going to call it. And since Threads now exist, I also don't know if I should start dipping in there as well. But usually the drill is particularly simple, almost sounds like a song, and it goes like this. You see that tweet, you like that tweet, you want us to discuss that tweet, you send that tweet. You send it to the DMs of @BugakaTheD, which happens to be my personal Twitter handle, and I will take them from there and handle them accordingly. On Facebook and on IG and on Threads, I guess, if it happens to be a screenshot, a screen grabs, if it ended up on Threads, and if you want me to discuss it, then the place to send it to is @Breaktime on Westside. The DMs are always open, and I will take it from there and I will handle it accordingly. Now, I have to admit, this whole name change thing, I definitely need to find a way around it. Although at the same time, since I've already started dropping names on the other end, I might as well just drop it and just move straight there. Although at the same time, I'm still thinking I should be calling it Tweet Street, but I don't know. I'm gonna figure that shit out. But as I work on that and, prepare the tweets that I'm supposed to get into, I need to play for you guys a video that was posted up on TikTok but made its way to Twitter, and it involved a particularly young guy trying to speak very bravely and very defensively of his woman. Now, I have a couple of thoughts that I need to get into with the entire thing, but first, let me just play the clip for you. So, here it is.
From today, if you disrespect this girl, hata kama we ni rafiki yangu wa karibu, please also disrespect me. If you don't love this girl, also don't love me, because you don't know what we have passed through with this girl. You don't know what I have done, what this girl have done to me. This girl had made me to be boy child. So if you disrespect her, also disrespect me. This girl is my hero. Among the heroes in this TikTok, this girl is my hero. This girl had made me to be in a house that I was not expecting to be in. So please, if you disrespect this girl, also disrespect me. And if she disrespect you, I will also disrespect you. But please respect this girl, I beg you.
Okay, so the guy on this video who's busy talking about if you disrespect my girl, you disrespect me as well. The guy does not look a day above the age of 24 years old, so he seems like a particularly young dude. And to be very honest, with the kind of tone that the guy is using on this entire thing, I'm not gonna lie, it sounds like this babe once sold her nudes for like $1 million, then spent like 500, 600, 700 G's on like getting his mom out of the hospital, and used like the remainder of the money to like put a down payment on a house for the two of them, and like spent maybe 100 G's left for like an iPhone or some shit. Like, she sounds like she's done so much for dude, and yet I don't think she's done all that. But hey, that's just me. But when I was looking through the comment section of the guy who posted up this video, like, yo, guys just have a lot of bile out here. Like, Kamati ya Roho Chafu is more active than ever, and the way people were coming at this dude were like, oh, now your baby's the one that will give it to even more. Oh, wait until this guy checks in to the house and finds another dude busy smashing his babe, or wait until he finds out that his babe has been smashing some other dude. And frankly, like, considering the way guys were coming at him and they were busy talking about how his baby is going to be banged or his baby is going to cheat on him or some shit, like, I feel like that was particularly negative and mostly uncalled for. But considering that this is how a lot of people react online, I'm not entirely surprised about it. It's just that, okay, my personal feelings weren't anything of the whole, oh, wait until your babe cheats on you or something like that. For me, personally speaking, I just felt like there's nothing wrong with what dude has done or said. It's just that it shouldn't be published to the open internet like this. Like, I feel like if this is something that you really want to do as a show of love and you really want to put it on the internet, you post it up on your stories and you make sure that it's only for close friends. Like, that's just my personal opinion. Because these very loud acts of love, of displaying love, they don't really work all that well on the internet, because the moment he has an issue with his babe, if the babe drops him, if the babe cheats on him, not that I'm saying that she will, but in the event that these guys break up, people are going to circle back to this video and clown him for it. And they will talk about how this dude was a simp. And the guy may or may not have been a simp. He may or may not be a simp right now. But him doing this, it just put it out there that, okay, now I'm willing to do all of this for my babe. But in the same light, it's like I don't expect me and my babe to leave each other. And that usually comes back to bite people, especially when they say or do such things when they're particularly young, as opposed to when they're a little bit older. Although then again, if you're a little bit older and you've been with your babe for a while, you don't feel the need to do such things because you're grown, you're more mature, you're pretty secure. And if that's something that you have to say or want to say, you'll say it when the time is right and not shout it to a group of people, not unless you absolutely have to. Which is essentially what this video is. You're just telling the entire world, that, your babe is not supposed to be disrespected. Otherwise, you're going to take it as an act of offense against you, which is mostly pointless because it's not like there's anyone who's started insulting her just yet. At least not right now, as far as my knowledge is concerned. So, to be quite honest, I feel like this was particularly excessive. I just hope it doesn't come back to bite him in the ass. And if it does, I just hope he has the ego, the balls, and the confidence to deal with this shit and move on, a less insecure individual. Although, with all of that said, I think it's about time we move it on to the tweets. So, on to our very first tweet case of this episode. And to kick things off, it was actually in relation to the story of Marlon Wayans and why he's never marrying or has never married up until now. So the main reason that he gave in an article that he did not too long ago was, I never got married because I knew my mom needed me. Women sometimes want to battle for your attention, they want to battle for your love, they want to be the one. Me and my mama share the same birthday. I'm not trying to hear you. End quote. Now, in relation to that particular quote and the article, someone comes out and says, and I quote, "In my opinion, a mother's love is not the same as a partner's love. Men often fail to decipher this. Stop searching for a mother in a wife." End quote. Now, in this particular case, I don't know if this is something that should really be told to men, because if I'm willing to tell dudes to stop searching for a mother, or at least a mother in a wife, then I'd probably also tell babes to stop doing the same, especially when they're in the bedroom and you're hitting it really good, and then all of a sudden they start calling you, what's that name again? But anyways, that's not entirely my place to say, but all in all, I do think that, actually I know for a fact that most people will be searching for their parent, or at least the parent of the opposite sex, from their partner. Or at least they'll be looking for certain aspects of their parents in the potential partner that they want to be with. It sort of all falls under this whole idea of the Oedipus complex, which, to sort of try and oversimplify things, pretty much states that your first love was your parent, or at least the parent of the opposite sex. And essentially, that is where you base a lot of your attraction from. And you will either be looking for certain qualities and features in a partner that your parents had, or you will be looking for those qualities and features that your parent didn't have, like the complete opposite. Such as in a case probably of an abusive parent or a certain toxic relationship that you totally do not want ever in your life. Now, ideally, that means that you are going to be looking for certain qualities and aspects in your partner that is related to your parents in some way, shape, or form. No pun intended. And that's sort of why the whole single parent structure kind of had issues back in the past. And I think kind of does to a certain extent today, because you're not entirely sure if it's a girl and they were raised by a single mom, if they have a fully well-formed idea of the kind of man that they'd want to have in their lives. Because if there was no father figure to sort of base the treatment that they're supposed to give, the kind of man that they're supposed to want, and so on and so forth, and like the qualities that they're supposed to have, then their capability to choose is quite heavily hindered. And the same could be said about boys who are raised by their dads or spend too much time with their dads and shit like that. So ideally, you are pretty much looking for elements of your parent in your partner, whether they're supposed to be there or not supposed to be there. So essentially, whether we want to admit it or we don't, we are looking for our parent in our partner. It's just how we're trying to look for it. Whether we're looking for qualities that they have that your partner should have, or qualities that they have that your partner shouldn't have, or vice versa, qualities that they didn't have that your partner should have. Ideally, it's supposed to be the blueprint that you start from so that you can sort of decide the kind of person that you want to be with. So essentially, we are looking for our parent in our partners. Although, then again, like I always say, I might be wrong about this. I want to hear your thoughts on it. But for now, I am going to leave it at that and move it on to our very next case of this episode. And it's just a full-on tweet, so I'm going to read it for you. So it says, and I quote, "I wish men would open up more about how they lost their virginity. I'm so curious about the experience from their point of view." End quote. Okay, now I think for most guys, I'm not gonna say most because I haven't done a poll, I don't know this for sure, but for a lot of guys I tend to think that the feeling, or at least the experience, isn't too far different from each other, because at the end of the day, it went in, it was a different feeling, and you kind of adjust to it, you see how to put in work here, put in work there, and you practically just do whatever you think or feel works. And then at some point, if you're gonna hit an orgasm, you'll feel it and you'll just know it at some point, and then it'll probably come out. Although I think I've kind of just made it seem like such a boring thing, but the reality of it is, I think a lot of guys don't open up about it because for some of them it happened at a very premature age, if I can call it that, because there's a lot of guys who lost their virginities in the earlier teens, and sometimes even in like single digit ages, because there's a lot of guys that were in some way, shape or form sexually abused when they were children, and they just haven't opened up about it. Probably they chose to forget it, probably it's something that they didn't really think too much of even right now, but you might find that it's someone who ended up losing their virginity at the age of 8, probably because of their cousin or the help or an aunt or a family friend or some shit, or the neighbor. And because I think for a lot of guys, sex is still considered a privilege, and maybe because they were told to keep quiet, or maybe because they weren't believed, they just ended up sort of sitting on that information and they haven't spoken up about it. Now, is it something that should be spoken up about? I can't really say that it shouldn't, but at the end of the day, some people kind of expect that you should have enjoyed it because you got it super early, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, like, a lot of guys just won't talk about it because they don't think there's that much to be spoken about. Because for a lot of guys, losing their virginity isn't that big of a deal, especially after you've lost it once and you've now started having sex with other people, or at least you've started having sex multiple times. The idea of losing your virginity sort of loses its meaning, because it's not like there's a special hymen that's broken. It's not like there's this wild feeling the very first time and then it changes over time, kind of like with women. But all in all, a lot of guys did end up losing their virginity at a particularly young age through some form of sexual abuse, but there are still some people that are still virgins even in their 20s, 30s and 40s. And there's others that lost their virginity as adults, and it was probably in the most boring fashion ever. They really spoke to a babe they liked, they went, they did it, and they nutted in 15 seconds or some shit like that. All in all, it's usually different from guy to guy. It's never all the same, and there's certain aspects that could be different, but all in all, I don't think that it's that big of an issue for a lot of us guys. Although, with that said and done, I will leave it at that and move it on to our final case, which is a tweet. So on to our very last tweet of this episode. And it says, and I quote, "Avoid having sex when you're chasing something big. Sex is just not about the exchange of fluids. It's more than what meets the eye. Sex is an exchange of energy. I have seen people who sleep around fail in deals they thought they had bagged because they couldn't keep their D in the pants." End quote. Okay, I don't know about this, or at least I really can't say if I agree or disagree with this, because it's very, very hard to sort of prove this. And to be quite honest, I think this is mostly just a belief case, because when you kind of think about it, and this is just something that I noticed with these particular things, and people usually talk about, oh, sex is an exchange of energy, oh, don't be having sex with blah blah, don't do this because if you get bad energies, or you'll get this. Usually they just talk about bad energy, and a lot of times they usually specify it on the guy. Like, weirdly enough, I think it's mostly because guys are the ones who are expected to, have the whole sexual variety thing as a thing for us. Even though there's some babes that also like sexual variety. But even with that aside, like, every single person that I have seen or heard busy talking about this whole exchange of energies usually only ever talks about the negative ones. I don't know. Sounds a little bit odd to me. They always talk about how, you'll get bad energy from sleeping with certain people, or if you pick up toxic energy, or it'll mess up your chakras, or it's usually just the bad energy. I have never heard any one of them busy talking about how if you have bad energy and you bang a babe who has really good energy, good stuff happens to you. Never heard that shit in my life. Usually they just talk about the negative shit. The dark energy, the bad energy, the toxic shit, the one that makes sure that you don't get any good deals, or you don't make the money that you thought you were going to make, or you end up depressed or some shit. It's never usually the good energy for some reason. And in a way, that's very similar to religious institutions that pretty much use the whole talk of fear when it comes to the discussion of sex. Oh, if you have sex, you'll die. Oh, if you have sex, this and this happens to you. And they usually make it seem like a very damning thing for a lot of people. Because when you look at a lot of religious institutions, churches, mosques, and so on, like, a lot of times whenever they talk about sex, it's in this really, really bad way, such that they work to make you scared of actually having sex, which I don't think is the best way to kind of tell people about it. But hey, that's just me. Although, when you think about it, it kind of just sounds like a fear tactic. Like, at the end of the day, you are going to get married and you are going to bang. So, I don't see why I have to be scared of it before I get married, then all of a sudden I'm supposed to be super okay with it once I'm married. Although, that's sort of a discussion for a different time. The whole talk is about, the whole spiritual energies exchanging. To be completely honest, I can neither confirm nor deny this information because I do not think it is scientifically provable, at least as of right now. But for the most part, like I said earlier on, this is mostly a belief system type thing, so either you believe it or you don't. Although, then again, I might be wrong about all of this, so I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On Twitter, it is at BagakaTheD. On Facebook and on IG, it is at Breaktime on Westside. Threads as well. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.